Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a general collective reading. There are no signs attached to it, so only take it if it resonates for you within the first couple of minutes. I've been personally feeling the effects of Mercury retrograde really strongly the last couple of days. So that could be part of the reading as well. We also just had new moon in Leo, and we are approaching Lionsgate as well. Lionsgate has always been sort of like an interesting threshold for me personally, but anyway, so we're just gonna get into it. I don't know. I don't even want to get into that at the moment. I just feel like there's a lot of energy that we're working with, so I'm just going to start pulling cards. Yeah, Quicksilver. This is the element that represents Mercury. So this talks about, actually I do think this talks about sort of like thresholds, which is interesting. One second. I'm pretty sure the key word that sticks out to me for this card is sacred threshold. So maybe you're sort of like about to step through some sort of sacred threshold. So Quicksilver, slippery, mobile Mercury, part liquid and part metal. Quicksilver, also known as Mercury, is a mesmerizing material. Its gift is to slip between worlds. It cannot be pinned down or easily defined. Mercury came to symbolize the god Hermes and the great hermetic secrets of alchemy, always sliding away into secrecy, just beyond the alchemist's grasp. It is said Mercury represents the transition between the physical and the unseen worlds, between life and death, between science and the esoteric. It is the metal of sacred thresholds. Shamanic practitioners of every tradition must acquire the ability to stand at the doorway between worlds. This is no small feat. The Mercury card indicates the querent has a particular gift for such a task. This is the work of the shaman, teacher, sage, artist, and alchemist. Heed the call of Quicksilver. The sacred threshold requires your attention. Requires your attendance. Interesting. To ponder the power of a secret. So I'm kind of getting with this energy with the Quicksilver. It's hard to pin down. I was getting kind of this feeling of like it feels like perhaps even collectively there are perhaps a group of people who are trying to, it was coming through to me as being like trying to find or find something that was hidden. It was coming through as a person actually, but I feel like that's more symbolic. It's like they're trying to find somebody with a particular gift is how it was coming through. But it's sort of slippery. Like you can't quite pin it down or pin if it's a person. I don't think it's an actual person. I feel like that's more symbolic. It kind of feels almost like a treasure hunt, but like trying to find perhaps like a threshold, like a sacred threshold, like trying to find an entry point to something. So now I'm almost like seeing this like shadow within this droplet here. It's kind of looking like foggy. It does feel kind of like trying to pin something down. It could be sort of like a spiritual experience of some sort, or someone with a particular gift is how it's coming through. I've been getting sort of this energy of like somebody who can like perform miracles was how it was coming through to me. And there's a collective sort of like trying to find that person, but that person is perhaps hiding, is kind of how it's feeling to me, or they don't want to be seen at the moment, is kind of how it's coming through. Virgin's milk at the bottom, or in the next card. Okay, let's read that one. Innocence, naivety, purity. In alchemy, the virgin's milk is a mystical substance supposedly coming from the virgin's breast. The alchemist asks, how can it be? How can milk come from one not carrying a child? That is precisely the nuanced teaching of the virgin's milk. When studied as an alchemical concept, it points to a lack of awareness or experience that the alchemist would rather not reveal. Yes, this milky substance is a symbol of purity and innocence, but its shadow side is naivety and even denial. When the virgin's milk appears, discernment and honesty must be applied to the work. Is something being glossed over, rushed, or presented as perfect? There are likely complexities that need to be addressed so the alchemist can gain the maturity to handle what's next. Patience is a remedy here. So maybe there's, especially with Quicksilver, because Quicksilver is such a slippery kind of substance, it feels like there are energies that are trying to rush something or someone, like trying to like rush a process, or like okay, so it's kind of, there's this show, Three Body Problem, where it's like there's this sort of like video game in that show where they have to solve a particular problem, and there are sort of like people who are sort of presenting a solution in sort of, so that's how it's kind of coming through, like people who are presenting a solution, perhaps saying they know how to do something, or that they know like this is the answer, this is how we solve a particular problem. But it's like, I feel like that's not, it's like somebody who's perhaps trying to rush something, like they don't want to feel like they don't know, right? Or that they don't know the solution. So it's like perhaps more patience is required, because it's kind of like, I don't want this to slip. I don't want something to slip. Like to slip away maybe. Or I don't want to miss the threshold. What if the door closes before I get there? It's that kind of energy. So it's like somebody's rushing something when perhaps it may not be time, or there's more study needed. Sugar. And you have copper at the bottom of the deck. So this is representing Venus. And sugar I also associate with Venus as well, because it talks about pleasure, like simple pleasures. Sugar is also this energy that sort of like can be uplifting. It's interesting again that I can't remember what reading it was. But there were all three of the cards were materials, and it's happening again here. These are all materials. So again, it's like more things to work with, which is interesting. You have Quicksilver, which is slippery. You can't get a grasp on it. And then Sugar. Sacred sweetness, pleasure, and attraction. No matter how intellectual and scholarly our pursuit, sugar reminds us of our longing for simple pleasures. Until the 12th century, our need for sweetness, it is after all one of the 5 essential tastes in Ayurveda, was fulfilled by raw honey offered by bees. This material had many medicinal properties and was known in alchemy as a sacred elixir. Now most of our sources of sweetness, both literally and metaphorically, are highly processed, defined for us by a culture of consumption. This card is a call to explore the simple sweetness in life. Can you add tenderness to your alchemical experiment? How about joy or even laughter? It is likely the pleasure you crave will not be found from manufactured means, but from the childlike wonder residing in the heart. Remember the alchemical wisdom of like attracts like. The power of attraction and aversion. It is talking about sort of like simple pleasures, right? Like very sort of perhaps basic or not processed. Like simple, not complex is kind of how it's coming through. Because I feel like with this Quicksilver energy, it's kind of feeling like maybe they're like someone's perhaps trying to make something more complex than it is, in perhaps an effort to seem like they know more, or that they with this card, right, like don't like not wanting to show one's innocence or lack of experience or Quicksilver, the Sage. This card does talk about sort of like simplifying something, because truth is more often than not simple than it is complex. This card also talks about sort of like honoring tradition, but also understanding where tradition needs to change. I'm seeing dandelion leaves in his hair today. This one can also see through the veil as well. He has one eye that sees sort of the physical and one eye that sees the metaphysical. Maybe there's a spiritual experience that you are having, but it is through sort of like perhaps like it's coming through the word like sense, like one of the 5 senses, for example. Maybe it's coming through a different sense than it normally does for you. Like, for example, like if you receive your guidance audibly, right? Like if you're clairaudient, for example, that might be how you usually receive downloads and guidance and intuition. But perhaps it's happening for you in a different sense. And it's causing some sort of change or like a new understanding about something. Lasuna. I want to read what that one says. I feel like this one talks about, so I always see this one as sort of like going into murky waters in order to discover something, right? Like sunken treasure, discovery of self, and adventure. Diving deeply into new experiences. It's also talking to me about like exploring an area of your life that is very, very, very close to you, in order to discover something new about it. Like it's kind of like being a tourist in your own life. Perhaps it has something to do with that. Like perhaps like seeing your own life as perhaps like a stranger would. Anyways, I'm going to read the description. Lasuna tells us to pay attention to our dreams, to listen to the murmur of the waters, to note the patterns in the damp fallen leaves, to listen for the distant high sounds of angelic music among the stars. She also suggests soothing baths, hot tubs, jacuzzis, trips to the nearest spa or hot springs, and dips in the handiest sea, pond, or mountain lake. Mud baths also help us quiet down and become strong enough to explore her territory, which is the earth and the waters, from the depths to the heights. As important as it is to explore the inner realm, she tells us that exploration of the outer realms is also vital. She suggests that we go places we have never been, try things we have never done, take classes in subjects we were always meant to study someday, maybe even learn a language and see where that takes us. Explore widely and deeply in our own world so that we develop the adventurousness of our spirits. So it's talking about adventure, right? Like perhaps going into something with this energy of like not knowing what to expect, or being inexperienced with something and being okay with that. Just sort of exploring and learning about something. It is coming through with like hidden treasure. Like you gotta sort of like dig around in like those lost drawers, or like forgotten corners, or like storage closets or something. I feel like there's something to be discovered. Could be literally or just symbolically. But it's kind of like pretend you don't, or have an attitude of like not knowing anything. Especially with the sage, right? Because this one can come through with like knowing too much. Sometimes that can like hold you back a little bit. Knowing too much with the spirit dancer. I love that as well. This card talks about like creating things. And having that creation be sort of a reflection of perhaps yourself in some way, or perhaps like what it is that you desire, or allowing yourself to sort of just be moved by energy, whatever that is. I kind of feel like here, the himself at the bottom of the deck, there's sort of like, because I feel like with copper as well, right? There's a desire to do something, right? Or perhaps some sort of new experience. But I feel like there's kind of like somebody with like too much knowledge is how it's coming through about like how something needs to be done, or like this is how we've always done it, or it could be sort of like being sort of like stuck in a certain way of thinking about a problem. I don't know if it's a problem though. Is it a problem? We'll get tarot on that. Okay, I feel like it's not this deck. Because it could be something like, especially with like tarot, as an example, where it's like we get too sort of like caught up in what the cards traditionally mean, like the meaning of things, right? Where it's like perhaps you're trying to pin something down, or like trying to get the answer or solution to something. And so it's like the sage energy comes in. This is how things have worked before. This is how we've approached the different problems before. When this card comes out, it means we should do this. Or it could be sort of like different patterns of thinking of like, well, the sun card means happiness, right? And I feel like there's perhaps sort of like an energy here, especially with the Quicksilver, because I feel like it's something where it's like the more you try and grasp at it, the more that you try and get the answer to something, the less clear it becomes. So it's kind of like, I feel like there's just sort of like a call to see something with the eyes of like you've never experienced something before. Like you've never seen a problem before. That's it's almost like just like taking I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna get cards. Temperance. It's talking about patience. I also feel like it's like because it's coming in with this energy of creating something, but perhaps you're creating with an element, metaphorically, that's a bit more slippery. Meaning it's like, it's not, I feel like it's something where it's like, it's not something that perhaps you are used to as an individual, or that the collective is not used to, or that it's never been done before. Kind of thing where, because this card is reminding me, there's so much in the Lord of the Rings story, when they were first creating the rings of power, and they used this substance that was almost like mythological is the word that I want to use, but it's also coming through as like it it was rare. It was a rare substance that had never been used before in that particular way. Like they hadn't created rings out of that material before. And so working with it was sort of like an experiment. That's sort of how it's coming through. Having to like experiment or find new ways of working with a particular element that perhaps requires sort of like combining different things, or because I feel like that it's I actually feel like it's coming through with sort of like non-traditional methods. I don't know what this is referring to though. Hopefully for you it's resonating. I'm also laying out the cards from right to left today. Maybe it's even doing something like that, like doing something backwards. Or just like from a different perspective. The Knight of Wands. That's feeling very non-traditional. I feel like that, but again, this is sort of like that fast-moving energy. Because it's kind of coming through, especially with the Sage is kind of coming through with Virgo energy, which is the Mercury retrograde that we're in is in the sign of Virgo. So that could be sort of like strict protocol is how it's coming through. Like maybe somebody has like a very strict sort of way of doing things. Traditional is how it's feeling to me. Or if it's not traditional, it's like your own personal sort of like routines or traditions or things that you do to sort of maintain your energy is how it's feeling to me. But I feel like maybe you're working with something that's different. And so this Knight of Wands energy, which is feeling more like a Leo, the Leo energy that we're in as well, that's sort of like making things move a lot faster. And so it's kind of like maybe there are things that are the old methods are not going to work here. I was feeling kind of like this energy of like even perhaps frustration, but it doesn't have to be that. Depends on the person. Where like maybe there's somebody who's doing something using a method that feels more sort of like there are more risks associated with it, or it has more potential for things to go wrong is kind of how it's coming through. Whereas, like, I feel like there's another energy here who wants to take things like, who is perhaps trying to do something in a very traditional, reliable, but slower. It's slower in whatever way that is. And it's like there's an energy that's doing something faster, but it's more reckless. I don't want to use the word reckless because it doesn't feel reckless to me. It just feels like there's a potential for things to go wrong, or like that there's something. I want to say it's like a calculated risk. interesting because this Knight of Wands is also very grounded, right? Like it's not. It feels like okay at a certain point things just need to move is how it's coming through. Instead of things being perfect, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm just gonna leave it like that. So I feel like maybe it's kind of like a shift into like, okay, we need to get some things done rather than we need to do it perfectly. I feel like there's someone who's like taking a calculated risk about like, okay, it's more important that something gets done rather than being done perfectly. The Sage can also be very serious, whereas Lasuna is not. Well, not that it's not serious, but it's like, yeah, Page of Wands and the Ace of Swords. Because this Page of Wands is talking to me about exploration, right? Like, just trying something new. It does kind of feel like taking a risk on something. Well, maybe it's not calculated, and maybe that's the point. Maybe it doesn't need to be calculated. With the Ace of Swords. I feel like maybe somebody's not feeling ready for something, or there's like, this one kind of comes in with this energy of like a big responsibility or, a lot to live up to. Perhaps there's some sort of expectation that feels like it would be a lot to take on or a lot to live up to. It sounds coming through. Seven of Wands. I'm kind of feeling like there's an energy here of like there's someone who is needing to like step up to something. I feel like that's not the right way to say it, but it's kind of like perhaps there's been somebody like holding themselves back from something, and it's like it's time to sort of like step into it, if that makes sense, or like step up or step forward even. But again, it feels kind of like there's almost like a fear of expectation, perhaps from self, right? Like maybe you're expecting a lot from yourself. And that could be what's holding you back from something. Again, like not wanting to seem like you don't know what you're doing, right? Not wanting to seem like you are new at something with the Page of Wands. Like, you don't want to seem like you are like this Page of Wands energy. Wanting to live up to somebody else's expectations could be that as well. But I feel like it's more internal. Yeah, the Tower card. You have the Hermit and the King of Swords out as well. But I feel like I'm not going to take those. Because I feel like the Tower, because the Tower is coming out underneath the Temperance, right? The Temperance today is sort of coming in with sort of the Sage energy. Or something where it's like you've been... The way in which you are doing something is not working with the Tower. It's requiring a drastic change. The way that like something is being worked on is how it's coming through. Like, so it could be a project or it could be a goal. It could be something that you're searching for is how it's coming through. The way in which you are searching for it is requiring a drastic change. Three of Pentacles underneath the Knight of Wands. I actually feel like this Knight of Wands might be an outside energy. I feel like that's not yours, but it might be. But with the Three of Pentacles, it's coming through as a collaboration. But it feels like a collaboration that maybe you wouldn't necessarily trust normally is how it's coming through, because perhaps, especially with Mercury retrograde and like contracts and things like that, like this energy doesn't necessarily feel stable as well. It could just be sort of like something that's like, again, hard to pin down. You can't really, it's not a reliable energy, but you have to collaborate with it in some way. Because I'm feeling kind of like there's a very stable energy with the Temperance. That feels very stable to me. Again, with sort of like the traditional ways of doing things. Or your personal like traditions or whatever, routines. But it's kind of like there's an energy here that perhaps wants to collaborate, but it's not something that you perhaps might feel comfortable with, or that it would require sort of like a big change on sort of like your established sort of way of doing things, that it feels kind of like maybe like a tower. It's like you would have like, I feel like it doesn't feel necessarily like catastrophe or like whatever. It doesn't feel necessarily like you're losing a lot of things. It just feels like it's a big change. I'm just going to phrase it like that. A big change. The Three of Pentacles, though, I do feel that it would be, you would be creating something. King of Rings. This feels like a fear. It's so interesting because this is the King of Pentacles in this deck, but to me it always looks like a King of Wands. It talks about an energy that, like, especially with this combination of cards, it's kind of like, if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings series, it's kind of coming through when like Pippin accidentally touches this sort of this crystal ball that like actually makes him visible to the enemy. That's sort of how it's coming through. I feel like this is a fear though, because it's kind of like, in doing this, you would be perhaps making yourself vulnerable. And it's kind of like, who would be witnessing that? Or who would, it's a feeling of feeling vulnerable in being seen as like I want to use the word small. That could be in like whatever way that is. Because it's just coming through with like sort of like Pippin, who's a hobbit, versus Sauron, which is like this like massive sort of like powerful entity, right? It's kind of like so it could have to do with like sort of power, but it doesn't have to be that. It could just be like, it could be status, it could be experience as well. It could be like circumstances in whatever way. Like somebody feels as if that they would feel either small about something in comparison to another who may see them like that. And there's a sort of resistance perhaps, or fear, or like shielding of oneself, like not wanting another person to see this aspect of you. It feels like trust. Like, maybe feeling like you can't trust somebody with something. Three of Wands. This is a really lovely card. Because to me, it kind of brings in this energy of like a Six of Wands, like celebrating something. Or like you are receiving, because it kind of looks to me like receiving like a bundle or like a care package or like a bouquet of something. Something that you manifested perhaps. But again, it feels kind of like, because underneath the Ace of Swords, it feels kind of like it's a big responsibility. Or that there's a lot of expectation attached to what you are receiving, perhaps. Wanting to do it justice is how it's coming through. Yeah, the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups. This is feeling kind of like it is feeling very heart, sort of like bottom of the deck, Two of Swords. There's some indecision is kind of how it's feeling. It's like because I feel like with the Knight of Cups, usually to me that represents sort of like a gesture of love. So coming out underneath the Seven of Wands, it's like having to step up or having to do something perhaps for another person. Out of love, but that it comes with a lot of responsibility for some reason. Like, wanting to do it like well or properly or like, as sort of like an example where it's like maybe it's somebody's birthday and it's like you want to bake them a cake, but maybe you've never baked a cake before. you've never done that before, right? Like it's like feels like that, like a gesture for somebody or a gift or like whatever, some sort of expression of love, whatever that is for you, in whatever way or whatever form that is for you. But it's like it's not something that you have done before with the Virgin's Milk. Like you don't have experience with that, so it's kind of like you have to learn it. And like feeling like, okay, what if it turns out terrible? And I feel like that's not even something that you should be worried about, because I feel like if the gesture is done from love, it would be appreciated, right? Like it doesn't even have to turn out perfect. It doesn't even have to be edible, in my opinion. I feel like it's like, oh, somebody baked me a cake, like that. It's kind of coming through like that. Like it's less about the actual outcome of something. It's more about the action that matters, or the intention that matters, rather than the actual outcome, if that makes sense. Because I feel like there's something about like the way that somebody has been doing something with the Temperance, what they feel confident with, perhaps, is not working for some reason with the Tower. It's not what is needed in the situation. So it's requiring sort of like a drastic change, but that change is something that someone doesn't feel comfortable with, or it's like they don't feel experienced with that, or it's something that they have to learn. And there's discomfort about that learning process. Okay, so you got 4 cards. There's 4 cards and each one of them has the number 4. 64, 43, 45, and 4. That's so interesting. So Woodwives, adaptability, overflow, overwhelm, and plenty, repairing the veil, forgiveness, and caterpillar, opportunity. It's requiring some adaptability, and I feel like whatever this opportunity is trying to repair something. Interesting. This overwhelm and plenty card. Because it's kind of like, it's feeling like there's a leak somewhere, energy-wise. Like having to repair some sort of energy leak. Okay, I'm just going to read the caterpillar because it's the last card and it's the number 4. Because clearly that's a very significant number for this reading. Because 4 is about stability, but it can also be about stagnation as well. So I feel like there is a significant change coming and a significant opportunity. So it says transformation, opportunity, independence from conditioned responses. The energy of caterpillar appears, heralding a time of transformation and opportunity. Here you are being asked to revise your dreams. If it looks and smells familiar, step away from it for a time being. The new cannot emerge from the old, and the youthful and vital cannot emerge from the aged and sickly. Experiment and surprise yourself with what arises for you in this moment. Caterpillar is an invitation to test out a new strategy to get a different, better result. Remember that the definition of lunacy is continuing with the same thinking and behavior and hoping for a different outcome. It's time to break away from habitual responses to surprise yourself and startle others, eliciting a smile or frown or look of awe from those around you. Do not wait for an invitation from life to practice a bit of outrageousness or for permission to do the unexpected. Any other response right now will lead to more of the same and no real change. Sometimes the most original response is no response whatsoever. Stand stock still, staring steadily into the eyes of the players in your drama, avoiding engagement until the moment is right. Caterpillar invites you to witness the story unfolding, knowing that deciding on the timing of your action is as essential as finding the best move to make. And when you do act, let there be no doubt in anyone's mind of your determination and the power you unleash. Very interesting. I actually feel like it's kind of coming through as being like the action that you are taking is unexpected from those around you. It does have to do with timing as well, but I feel like that's less of an issue here. It's so interesting. This tower, the silhouette of this tower is looking so similar to this energy as well. Maybe I have to read that one. Because it is calling for like something to be more adaptable. Okay. The woodwives dance into your dreams as a reminder to be grounded no matter what life offers you. You need to know who you are, what you'll tolerate, what you've learned to date, and what boundaries to set so you feel good about yourself. Life is going to offer you something extraordinary now, and in order to learn and receive its blessings, you must remember that being grounded gives you more freedom, not less. You have everything you need. You have all it takes to do this right now. If you also keep reminding yourself to be flexible, you will be amazed by how well things play out for you. The woodwives are both wisdom keepers and students of the new world, as these forest spirits have an uncanny ability to adapt to changing circumstances and always find the perfect way to grow and expand. They represent what you already know how to do. Learn, be in beginner's mind, let go of your rigid notions of how things should be, and be present to what is right now, unencumbered by your projections. Is there a storm brewing because things need to change? No worries, nothing can uproot you now, and it will pass, and you will dance with nature and move with it all. Perhaps you're being given an opportunity to take a chance on something new, and you're not sure how far you can go without losing your footing. Have no fear, for when you remember your roots, your integrity, your authentic self, you can stretch yourself beyond the invisible line you drew. Go for it. You'll be so glad you did. So again, that one's also talking about an opportunity and needing to adapt to something. I do feel that like something is grounding And it's a reminder to not feel like you will be losing your freedom. That's an interesting energy here, because I feel like there's perhaps... Anyways, there's a lot of wands energy in your reading. I feel like there's a lot of change happening. A lot of like new energy is coming in, and it's an opportunity is how it's coming through for you to explore something that you may be sort of a beginner at, and it requires letting go of something. Okay. Letting go of something because there's something new coming in, I feel like. That would actually be an opportunity for you that might even surprise you as well. So I'm going to leave the reading there. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.